Struggling with scanning errors and peeling labels? Moving or reconfiguring your warehouse? Implementing a new WMS? The wrong labels can slow your operation down. Luckily, ID Label has durable, scannable barcode labels and signs built to last and keep your operation moving. Plus, if you need to get those labels installed, they've got it covered. Their expert team installs rack labels, overhead signs, floor striping, and more with precision, so your warehouse operations continue uninterrupted. I've installed tens of thousands of labels in my career, and I wish I had someone else do it for me. Get a free sample pack at idlabelinc.com, because when they do the barcodes, you can do more. That's idlabelinc.com for a free sample pack and more information.
The New Warehouse Podcast, hosted by Kevin Lawton, is your source for insights and ideas from the distribution, transportation, and logistics industry. A new episode every Monday morning brings you the latest from industry experts and thought leaders. And now, here's Kevin.
Hey, it's Kevin with the New Warehouse Podcast, bringing you a new episode today. And on today's episode, I am going to be joined by Nick Retzmann, and he is the Chief Growth and Product Officer at Vaibe. And I think we're going to have a good vibe on today's podcast, I can say. We're going to talk a little bit about what is Vaibe. We're going to dive into gamification and employee engagement in the warehouse, which we're very excited to learn more about, dive further into, because I think that employees and people are still very much the heart of the warehouse and operation. So very interested to hear what Vaibe is doing to help with that, and also learn a little bit from Nick today. So Nick, welcome to the show. How are you?
Good. Thanks for having me. Great to be here, Kevin.
Definitely. Happy to get you on. Happy to learn more about Vaibe today. So why don't we kick it off? Give us kind of a brief overview of just what Vaibe is.
Right. So Vaibe is a gamification platform, as you already said, basically applied in warehouses to increase employee engagement. Software as a service tool, we can connect to any source system out there, and basically creating challenges around daily tasks to then at the end increase employee engagement and in turn also operational performance.
Very nice. And so gamification, so for people that aren't familiar, why don't we define gamification? What is gamification?
Right. So gamification, as we define it, is basically creating challenges, games around daily tasks to basically bring a little bit more fun to work. Right. So, for example, we say always we can gamify any success KPI, which is data-driven and impacted by human behavior. We could create challenges around how many podcasts do you record? How many picks do you do in a warehouse? Right. The idea is to really take the people with you on a journey to show them that work is work, but why not to turn work a little bit into fun?
Interesting. Yeah. And I think I was going to ask you that, so let's work, right? How are you going to make it fun? So tell us a little bit about, how does gamification come into play in a warehouse operation specifically, right? I mean, we think about a warehouse, there's work that needs to be done, right? It's certainly, constant, nonstop most of the time, right? That needs to get done. There's a lot of productivity, a lot of data points, as you mentioned, that are out there, and goals that employees need to hit. So tell us a little bit about how do you bring gamification into a warehouse environment, and how do you make that work that, a lot of times can be pretty monotonous and, a little difficult as well, and heavy. How do you make that a little bit fun, like you just said?
Yeah, I mean, you touched a lot of super important points, right? You said there are goals, jobs to be done. It's often quite busy, but also it's very repetitive tasks, right? Very data-driven task, and all of that is a perfect environment for gamification. Now, let's take probably a practical example. what we often do is we go to the warehouse managers and ask them, what's kind of the core process you're currently looking at, right? Let's take the picking process, for example, right? And then we ask kind of what are the core challenges you have? Yeah, okay, increased workload due to a new customer, peak seasons, right? Probably also kind of a performance and quality drop for whatever reason, right? So we understand what is the core challenge. And then we understand what kind of data are available. And the warehouse is a pure play for data, right? You have all of them stored in the WMS systems. And what we then do is put our system on top of the existing source system, for example, the WMS, and give the manager the opportunity to create challenges around the task picking. And then we have different types of games, such as, for example, I don't know, the first one who picks XYZ items wins the challenge. Or if you want to increase team spirit, right, you say, hey, come on, you as a team, you need to increase your pick rate by X. Or if you want to have it a bit more competitive, right, you play day shift versus night shift, for example, right? And then the manager creates the challenge and the employees see the challenges on our mobile app, which everyone can download, or on a public display if they should not use their mobile throughout the work. And then they do their normal job. They're not distracted. They don't game throughout the work. But we retrieve the data from the system. At the end of the shift, they see the results. And they're like, hey, was it worth working 8-9 hours in this cold freezing warehouse? Yes, because you won the challenge, right? Coins and points and a bit of leaderboards and then we increase also engagement around it. And again, it's not only for individual players. It's also especially often played on a team basis, right? To increase the team spirit.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's interesting. You mentioned the word engagement there, right? Because I think that, certainly there's been a lot of discussion in the last few years around labor shortage, labor retention, right? Challenges around that. And I think that, the market is at a point where, those warehouse employees, like they're looking for more from the company, right? They were in the past, and I don't agree with this, and I won't say this it was everywhere, but certainly at a lot of places they were just kind of like a number, right? They were just basically a tool to get the work done, and that was it. If they left, there was plenty of other workers to backfill them and do that. But that has shifted a little bit, and I think those employees they're critical. They've always been critical, right, to getting the job done and getting product to the customer. I mean, they're the last ones that touch it most of the time. So, that engagement, tell us a little bit about, how because I've worked with, both sides of the table where, there's managers, warehouse leaders that really believe in the people, right, and want to do right by the people. They want to do the good thing. And I think they would see the value in this for sure, right? But then there's certainly the other side of the table where they're like, we just need to get the work done. Like they should be happy to just show up and get a paycheck. Basically, we're paying them, so what more could they want, right? When I've even I've worked with people that are like, we should cut coffee, right? And I'm like, you can't cut coffee. Like that's gonna be like a revolt, right? So how do you kind of talk to people to say that this engagement is going to help the operation and why should they care about something like this?
We'll be back after a quick break.
You work hard for your warehouse, but is your technology working as hard as you do? Don't you think your warehouse deserves that? Find that technology work ethic with the EPG One Unified Supply Chain Execution Suite that's built to arm warehouse leaders with tech that powers competitive edge. With modular solutions for WMS, WCS, TMS, Workforce, Doc, 3PL billing, Control Tower, and the #1 voice picking solution named Lydia Voice, the EPG One suite gives you tech that works harder for your warehouse and the agility to help you scale with confidence and be built for what's next. Smarter, connected, and harder working logistics starts at epg.com. That's epg.com.
I mean, you touched the point of labor shortage, right? And it was just mentioned in the latest Magic Quadrant from Gartner around warehouse management systems. That is one of the key challenges warehouse operations face in the future. It's still people doing the job out there. And I know everybody talks about AMRs and robotics, and that's certainly the future, right? As long as people doing the job, you need to motivate them. You need to take them with you on the journey. And Vaibe has been mentioned in the latest WMS report as the leading gamification tool, together with our strong partner Infios. Because at the very end, we understood that the people doing the job out there, you need to take them with you on the growth path. You need to give them something to motivate them. We often say the fruit basket itself is not enough anymore, especially when you look at the Generation Z, the future employees of your warehouse. They're used to their mobile. They're used to mobile gaming. They're used to entertainment and engagement. And in turn, we provide them with the tool to bring something new into the warehouse, and not only increase, as you also touched the point of salary, to say you increase the salary to compete probably against the warehouse just opened next door, but you basically increase the salary by rewards of the employees or the teams, which then in turn give you something back. So you create basically a win-win situation for the employees, which have an innovative tool and can redeem points and coins, a bit of healthy competition, but also some monetary rewards, for example. But you also increase the performance of the overall warehouse, right? And at the very end, we work with both sides. We understand what the warehouse manager wants, how their KPIs look like, what data are available, what they want to gamify. But we also listen to the employees to understand what kind of game mechanisms and rewards to implement to really increase their engagement. And engagement also in turn increases measurably the performance of the warehouse. To give you another one probably is when we founded Vaibe back in the days, in close collaboration with Infios. And they came to us and they said, look, we have the best or one of the best in class WMS systems out there, always on the top right corner from the Magic Quadrant of Gartner. But what do we actually do to give something back to the people doing the job out there? 8 hours, night shift in a cold warehouse. What do we do to increase, after you implemented the best WMS system, the performance, the operational performance of the employees by 10, 15%? Gamify them, give them something back, take them with you on the growth path. And then we can talk about what you do with the data in the future, right? To kind of, implement learn and development tools for specific teams, for example. Not everyone performs on the same level. And it's not about identifying who's not performing, because the data are anyway there. We always use the term a little bit, there's stick and the carrot, and we're definitely the carrot, right? Because you motivate people to go beyond, to understand what is the broader goal, the major goal of my employer, of my warehouse, and how can I contribute, but how get I also something back in return, right?
Interesting. Yeah. And I think that it's tough sometimes to release, I guess, things that are not necessarily directly related to the work, right? Like incentives for employees and, trying to understand like, well, how does, making these employees happier, how does it make them more engaged? And, when they're engaged, does that really translate into productivity? So I guess give us an example. Tell us how does that gamification work through Vaibe, and how do you typically kind of incentivize and maybe some of the results that then are produced?
Yeah. So how it typically really works, that we work side by side with the warehouse managers. What are the core processes and the core KPIs they're looking at, right? What are probably the pain points they're having, but probably also, Kevin, the behaviors they want to enrich. So you not only always need to solve something with gamification. Probably you'll also say, hey, that works really well. Why don't we underline this and give something back, right? So that's the first step we do. But then we often talk also to the employees itself, right? And ask them kind of, do you understand what are the core KPIs when we implement gamification? And once we've done that, we provide the software stack to our customers, and then they can create challenges around any KPI they want at the very end, right? We're also testing currently, for example, a health and safety use case, right? It's not only always just around the performance, right? It could be also zero accidents as one of the key challenges, right? Often you have one person responsible in the warehouse for being the health and safety manager. If you create a team challenge around it, all of a sudden everybody's kind of on the lookout for oneself and say, hey, really, do you need to do that? Kind of, hey, come on, we have this challenge ongoing. Kind of, let's work together on the health and safety use case. And you asked, how do we also measure if that turns engagement into performance? We also have various other features on our software, such as engagement surveys or sending kudos to your peers, having certain badges for if you have done certain things on the application itself, right? And we measure out of this data an engagement score, which we provide to our customers, so they can really tell if the employees interact with our software stack. How we often do it is then we can connect to any source system out there. And as I said, we provide the desktop tool where the manager can basically implement new games. The employee can use their mobile phone to see the challenges or on a public display, which are present, in the locker room or in the warehouse itself. But at the very end, we also can do white label it. So it doesn't have to be only the Vaibe platform. So if you talk to other large software providers out there, say, hey, it should look like our tool because we already have kind of an employee tool. We can easily integrate in this one and just provide the gamification stack to, again, create challenges around daily tasks.
Interesting. So, would you categorize it as a labor management system? Is it similar?
I would say we're an add-on to the labor management system, right? So the labor, and I don't want to make us smaller than we are, right? Because we can make the difference when it comes to operational performance increases for up to 15, 20%, right? But let's face it, you don't need gamification to run the operations of your warehouse. But if you want to give something back to your employees, if you also want to in turn measure operational performance increase, then you add Vaibe Gamification. And again, Vaibe Gamification can connect to any source system. So you already have a labor management tool, connect Vaibe and create challenges around the daily tasks. And again, one of our customers said it once, work is work, but why not to turn work into fun?
Yeah. I like that definitely because, I think it's such an important thing because, in the warehouse, it can be, tough days, definitely. And, it's monotonous, repetitive. It's, heavy work. It's grueling sometimes. It's hot in there. It's cold in there. And, not being able to have some fun or create some fun for the employees sometimes doesn't, it can be stressful a little bit in some aspects. So, so really appreciate that sentiment, definitely. And so now tell us a little bit about how does this work, right? So if I have my WMS already as a baseline, does this add on to any WMS? Do I also need an LMS as well to tie into, or do I not need an LMS and I can utilize this as well? Tell us about the system perspective and how does this kind of integrate into the system side of the operation?
Yeah, exactly. You need a source system, right? WMS system. If you want to gamify learning, development, and LMS, right? Again, we can work with any data set out there and gamify any data set. But let's start probably easy with the WMS. You have up and running a WMS system. It works perfectly fine. What we do is we understand how to integrate into your system via API, retrieve certain data points. The ones you want to gamify as a customer, pick rate, zero accidents, training sessions done, for example. We integrate into the source system, provide you with our software, and can be basically live in 2 weeks, because implementing gamification is not rocket science. True, we always need data. We do not produce own data. We always use the data which are anywhere there. The only thing we do then on top is, with our software stack, is we give you the opportunity to create games, challenges around it. And again, in different kind of types of challenges. Be the first one, do the most, reach a certain target. And all of them not only individually, but often also as a team basis, right? So cooperative gaming is one of the key aspects from Vaibe and gaming anyway, the future, right? So you don't want to always compete completely. You rather want to have everyone on the same page and take everyone with you on the journey. So what we often recommend then to our customers is, let's start easy. Let's create one simple game, increase number of picks by X, take the number of picks per employee out of the data set, WMS, for example, create a challenge around it, put some nice rewards in our store system, and then the employees do their normal job. They're finished. They understand if they won the challenge. They redeemed coins and points. With the points, they see where they are on the leaderboard of healthy competition. And with the coins, they can go into our shop system, in the system, and then redeem rewards, whatever the employer has put in the shop itself, right? Again, you can also create, as I said, team challenges, and then we have at the end of the game, for example, the team dinner, right? So everybody does something together, and then if the job is done, right, clear that warehouse until Friday, everything needs to go out. And when you as a team do that and win the challenge together, then there's a big party on Friday.
Nice. I like that. Big party on Friday. That sounds good. So tell us a little bit about, some examples of what people put in that incentive shop. Like what are some of the creative things that you've seen or heard that organizations that use Vaibe are putting in there as incentive prizes, I guess, for the employees?
Yeah, we get this question a lot, right? And then often I ask back kind of, yeah, but what do you think is engaging for your employees? And often they don't know, right? So, and that's the first super interesting point, because you would expect that you understand how to engage, how to motivate your employees, but you often don't, right? So we're more than happy to provide also here benchmarks, ideas, what others put in. And one of the interesting things is that in Europe, we often see rather monetary rewards. And in the US, you see also other rewards, not only monetary. Working assumption is that it's based on the different income levels. That's only a working assumption. So the obvious is that you put in vouchers, which then your employees can basically redeem out there in the shop system. But the non-obvious is a little bit around, for example, we have a customer who put in the WWA belt for the winning team.
Okay.
We had another customer who thought about putting the winning team can choose the music in the warehouse for 1 week, right?
Yeah.
So especially when it comes to team challenges, what we often see is that you have not only individual rewards in there, but a team reward. As I already said, the team dinner, the team party, the get together. And we do that also internally, right? So it's really motivating to have a common goal. And then what we often tell our customers, balance it with individual challenges. So have one common goal for everyone, bit of a bigger thing probably, but then also give smaller rewards out to individuals, and that they understand how they can individually contribute and in turn gain something back.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, and I love some of the creative ideas there, especially like the wrestling belt. I think that's that's pretty funny, and I think that would be a lot of fun for the employees too when that gets rewarded. So tell us now, I guess we talked a little bit about some of the incentivization there and some of the potential like prizes for the employees. But earlier we talked about the labor shortage, labor retention issues. So tell us where Vaibe has been implemented in operations. How does that help to increase either attraction of new workers or retaining existing workers?
Yeah, right. I mean, the Gallup research, one of the leading research institutes, says that 80% of the people are unengaged at work, and this costs the economy globally trillions, right? And affects basically every company. And an unengaged workforce really has an immediate effect on the performance of each company, right? So this is the first indicator which we measure. I'll give you an example. Yeah, an easy one, if you increase pick rate, you can easily calculate the ROI for the customer, for our customers. Increase pick rate, increase turnover, increase the top line, right? But then there are side effects, and you mentioned them already, which is super important. For example, brand awareness, employer branding, in the onboarding process, in the recruiting process itself, yeah, and mention that you have innovative tools out there where you say, hey, good work is rewarded. Good work is seen. We give something back to our people, right? So in the recruiting space, it plays a tremendous role, and we get often the feedback from our customers that they say, hey, we actually use this. We actually mentioned this already in the recruiting process, and say, hey, yeah, you will get a tool where the data which are anywhere way there now turn into challenges, and you have the chance. You don't need to participate, right? But if you want to participate here, you have the opportunity to earn extra rewards, and that is really a magnet. And you also mentioned it, retention, right? We had a customer which said, hey, across the street, opened another warehouse. I know that they're going to offer a minimum, but a very immeasurable amount more per hour. And he was really afraid that the good employees just, walk across the street and start working there. And what we said is, hey, we understood the fear, but instead of just increasing the wages on average for everyone, implement Vaibe, understand who's basically contributing to your success, right? And then in turn, your profit, but hey, give something back to the people. Bonus schemes are quite common out there, right? And I never understood why they're only on a yearly basis, right? Because short-term incentivization can really provide a hype and really take the people to the next level, not only from a performance increase for your company, but also for their self-well-being. I contributed to something. I've done something for the company. I like to work here, but I got something back.
Yeah, and I think some really great points in there because, certainly there are these pockets where they're densely populated with warehouses, right? I mean, there's, you go into these areas, especially I'm in New Jersey here, and we definitely have a couple pockets where it's just like warehouse, right? You just drive down the street and that's all it is. And there is like high competition there, right? Like you mentioned, the warehouse next door is now offering 50 cents more an hour, right? So that's like, a risk potentially to lose employees. But I do think that also because of that closeness, word travels pretty quickly, right? I mean, certainly, as I've managed warehouses and worked in them, that you hire somebody and like two people that already work for you are like, oh, I know that person, I worked with them before, right? But that word like travels quickly. So I think when you have something like that, a unique incentivization plan, and you're offering short-term bonus or short-term rewards, I think that also gets out there, right? It's like, well, yeah, maybe they're like 50 cents less an hour, but like they do also have like these monthly or weekly potential to make more and do these things. So, I think it's great to have a program, and I could see that being a really, really great recruiting tool to be able to do that. And then also, from that retention perspective, even if you can't from like a budget perspective, match the, $1.50 more an hour that, the company down the street is doing. Some of these incentivizations, I think could make the difference in an employee thinking about like going after just, $1 more an hour versus, hey, well, here I can like, I can get a bonus, a monthly bonus or something like that, or some other kind of benefit. And it's fun too, like you said, right? It's enjoyable to be in an atmosphere like that. So a really interesting approach to creating better engagement. And I think making the work fun, as you said earlier. So, if we look towards the future, I'm curious, what do you see, especially as you mentioned Gen Z earlier, right, coming into the workplace, and these younger generations coming in that are used to more of this digital world, and they're also like measuring life on the number of likes and things, right, on TikTok or Instagram or whatever, right? So gamification and incentivization, I think, is part of their ethos. But how does that kind of translate into what like the future of the workforce looks like and what their expectations around employee engagement are going to be?
Yeah, I mean, you touched the important point, right? Generation Z is the employee of the future. They're used to, as you said, likes, having entertainment all around them, always their mobile phone on hand. And providing them with a tool will give our customers the competitive advantage they need in the recruiting process. The other major trend you will see is robotics in the warehouse. And we're already now thinking about challenges where we have robots and employees playing together to overcome the fear that you're a competitor, but you rather start living in a cobot world where you interact with them, where you create a challenge together, right? And first take the fear of the people. I'm not even saying going where to compete against the robots. That's not my point. It's rather creating an environment, an engaging environment where you interact with them, where they're basically your companion of the future, right? The next step and trend will definitely be to do something with the gamification data. It is normal that all of us have a certain strength and probably have something where they need to improve, right? And if you understand based on our challenges and our data what that is, you can then provide the employees, which is a top performer in one field, probably needs a bit of support in another field. You can identify that and create engaging challenges to also take this employee with you on the growth path and not immediately say, hey, wow, it's not performing. But you understand probably why based out of our challenges, and then provide the right information, trainings to basically, improve each and every individual in your warehouse. And then in turn, of course, again, the performance of your warehouse. Recruiting someone new, learning, teaching someone how to do a job costs you much more than investing in one people and take them with you on the next level.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point too, and I love the idea there of utilizing it to get more comfortable around the robots, right? And being able to have that collaboration. At first, when you said that, I was thinking like, oh, man versus machine, right?
That's the first intention, right? Everybody thinks of, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to go on this competition. It's rather about create a challenge for where you interact with the robot, right? Kind of lose the fear and see the robot as a companion of the future, because it will happen. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I like leveraging it in that way, because you create that kind of more comfortability and the incentivization to utilize the robot as a tool to help you be more productive, which I think is it's a great thing there. So really interesting to talk to you today, Nick, and really appreciate you coming on to share more about Vaibe with us and the idea of gamification and increasing that employee engagement to make that work fun at the end of the day. And really interesting too to hear your insights on what the future of this might look like. So if people are interested in learning more about Vaibe, maybe changing the vibe in their current warehouse, what's the best way to get in touch or learn more?
Sure. First of all, thanks for having me. And it's always a pleasure to talk about this topic, because at the very end, when we founded Vaibe back in the days, it is so important for us to say, for each and every company, it is important to give something back to their employees. As long as people doing the job out there, you need to motivate them, right? So implementing gamification is not rocket science. So please feel free to reach out to me directly or via our website, www.vaibe.com. You find us also on LinkedIn, and I really look forward to work with you to identify how we can motivate your employee and take engagement on the next level.
All right, great. And we'll definitely put all that information at thenewwarehouse.com as well as in the show notes here. So, Nick, thank you once again for your time on the show today.
You've been listening to the New Warehouse Podcast with Kevin Lawton. Subscribe and check us out online at thenewwarehouse.com.
enjoyed this episode, make sure you are subscribed to the podcast. And for more content from the New Warehouse, find us on LinkedIn and YouTube. Links to subscribe can be found in the show notes. And for everything The New Warehouse, head to thenewwarehouse.com.